It was a quiet afternoon in the bustling city park. Children played in the distance, joggers passed by, and the gentle rustle of leaves filled the air. Among the crowd, an elderly woman walked slowly, enjoying her day. She held her shopping bag carefully, smiling at the sunny day. Suddenly, a young man, clearly frustrated and rude, bumped into her. He snatched at her bag and, in a moment of careless aggression, shoved her hand roughly, causing her to stumble slightly. No one was seriously hurt, but the action startled everyone nearby. The woman steadied herself, her eyes wide with shock, but she remained calm and dignified. People around paused. Some whispered to each other, "Did you see that? Why would he do that?" A few bystanders took out their phones, recording what had just happened. Yet no one stepped forward immediately. The city's usual bustle continued around them, oblivious to the small drama unfolding. The bully smirked, thinking he had asserted dominance, laughing under his breath as he muttered, "What can't even handle a push?" But the woman did not react angrily. Instead, she straightened her posture, looked at him firmly, and spoke in a soft but steady voice. "That wasn't very kind. Please respect others." Her words seemed to confuse him, and for a moment, the street went quiet. People stopped walking, noticing the tension. Some muttered, "Who is she? Why isn't she angry?" The bully, frustrated that she didn't respond the way he expected, took a step back, scanning the growing audience. And that's when everyone sensed something in the air, an unspoken feeling that this was no ordinary woman, and perhaps someone important was about to step in. The crowd instinctively edged closer, curious and tense, their phones ready to capture whatever would happen next. Little did the bully know, the woman's son was nearby, calm, confident, and ready to handle the situation. He wasn't rushing in recklessly, he was assessing, waiting for the right moment. The suspense hung thick in the air. Everyone wondered what would happen next. No one in the crowd realized who was about to step forward, and the bully had no idea the tables were about to turn. The street had fallen into an uneasy quiet. The elderly woman, still composed, adjusted her bag and glanced around, hoping the situation would resolve without further confrontation. But the bully, frustrated that she hadn't reacted angrily, decided to push the situation further. He stepped closer, blocking her path. "What do you think I care about your opinion?" he sneered, waving his hand dismissively. Some bystanders murmured, shifting their weight nervously. A few braver individuals raised their phones, recording the encounter. The tension in the air was palpable. It was clear this confrontation could escalate at any moment. The woman, steady and calm, held her ground. "There's no need to be rude," she said firmly, her voice carrying across the small crowd. "Please respect me and others around you." The bully's smirk faltered slightly, replaced by irritation. He leaned in, speaking louder, trying to intimidate her. "Why don't you just move along, old lady? You think you can lecture me?" The crowd, sensing the rising tension, began whispering among themselves. Someone should stop him. "I can't believe he just did that." Phones continued to record, capturing every second of the incident. The suspense grew, everyone wondered, who will step in? At that moment, the woman subtly glanced behind her. Her eyes were calm but carried a hint of expectation, as if someone she trusted was nearby. A few bystanders noticed her shift in expression and began to murmur, "Wait, who's she with?" Meanwhile, the bully, feeling the attention of the crowd, attempted one more push. This time, a taunting gesture meant to intimidate the woman further. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said, laughing mockingly. But something in her stance, the way she didn't flinch or raise her voice, made him pause. The bully's confidence wavered, just slightly. And then from across the street, a figure appeared, calm, confident, and purposeful. The woman's son, Jason Statham. He didn't rush. He walked steadily toward the confrontation, eyes fixed on the bully, assessing the situation. Every step he took seemed to command attention. The crowd instinctively parted slightly, sensing that this was the moment when things could change dramatically. The suspense reached its peak. The bully glanced toward Jason and, not recognizing him, laughed nervously. "Who's this guy?" he muttered. But Jason didn't respond with anger or aggression. He simply continued walking, exuding authority and quiet strength, positioning himself between his mother and the bully. The crowd held its breath. Phones were raised high, recording the unfolding drama. People whispered, "Something's about to happen, I can feel it." The bully, unaware of who he was facing, shifted uncomfortably, sensing that the balance of power was subtly beginning to change. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments and tell me, if you were here, would you step in or wait to see what happens? The stage was set. The bully had underestimated the woman and had no idea the man approaching was someone extraordinary. The tension hung in the air, thick and electric, as Jason Statham prepared to take control of the situation, calmly, confidently, and safely. No one in the crowd knew what was about to happen next, and the bully had no idea the tables were about to turn dramatically. The air was thick with tension. The small crowd that had gathered around the street scene seemed to hold its collective breath. Phones hovered in midair, recording every detail. The elderly woman stood quietly, her bag held tightly in front of her, her eyes scanning the approaching figure with a mixture of hope and calm resolve. From across the street, a man walked toward the scene, steady, measured, confident. Every step he took seemed deliberate, like a hero entering a movie scene. His eyes were fixed on the bully, but there was no hint of anger. This was Jason Statham, her son, a man known for his calm composure and quiet authority. Yet at that moment to the crowd he was just a figure approaching, and to the bully, he was an unknown challenger. The bully, still standing in front of the elderly woman, smirked. "Who's coming? You got a bodyguard now?" he said, sneering, his confidence slightly wavering as he tried to appear in control. But Jason did not rush or yell. He walked with a quiet intensity that somehow made the bully pause. The air seemed to tighten around the two men. Jason stopped a few feet away from the bully. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make sudden movements. Instead, he positioned himself slightly in front of his mother, a subtle but unmistakable protective stance. The crowd instinctively leaned in, sensing that this was the turning point. Phones clicked, recording every second, and whispers spread. "Who is that? He's so calm." The bully, sensing eyes on him from all directions, tried to regain control. "Step aside, old lady, or you'll regret it," he barked. But his tone lacked the certainty it had a moment ago. Something about Jason's presence unsettled him, though he didn't yet understand why. Jason's gaze locked with the bully's, calm, steady, unwavering. Then, without raising his voice or making a threatening gesture, he spoke. "It's time to show some respect. Enough is enough." His voice carried across the street, firm but controlled. The crowd reacted immediately. A wave of murmurs and gasps ran through them. People began to inch closer, sensing that something significant was unfolding. The bully shifted nervously, glancing at the recording phones, then back at the man in front of him. He still didn't know who he was dealing with. And for the first time, a flicker of fear crossed his face. Jason didn't rush. He took a step closer, each movement deliberate, controlled. The bully, trying to maintain dominance, made a sudden move, a taunting gesture, a step forward trying to scare Jason. But Jason mirrored him, matching every movement calmly, maintaining a safe distance while projecting a quiet authority that was almost palpable. The crowd was silent now. Holding their breath, some whispered, "He's like an action hero. Look at him, he's so calm." Others raised their phones higher, capturing the entire exchange. The suspense was tangible. Would the bully back down, or would the situation escalate? Then Jason spoke again, calmly, but with undeniable weight. "You don't treat people like that. Not her, not anyone. Step back, apologize, and do better." His words were simple, but their impact was enormous. The bully froze. The sneer faltered, replaced by uncertainty. The audience sensed a shift. The power dynamic had subtly changed. The elderly woman watched silently, proud and relieved. The crowd began to murmur in agreement, supportive of Jason's calm yet firm approach. The bully, realizing he was outmatched in composure and authority, stumbled over his words. I didn't," he started. But Jason cut him off with a raised hand, still non-threatening but commanding attention. "Enough excuses. Respect is not optional." At that moment, the suspense reached its peak. The bully's arrogance had been replaced with uncertainty. Every bystander could feel it. Even without physical confrontation, Jason's presence, calm authority, and measured words had transformed the situation. He didn't need to yell or fight. The tension itself was enough to hold the crowd wrapped and make the bully pause. If you were watching this live, what would you do? Step in, call for help, or just record it? Comment below your answer. The crowd's attention was entirely on Jason. The bully had no idea that the man standing in front of him wasn't just protective of his mother, but someone who carried authority, calmness, and confidence like few others. The suspense hung in the air, every eye fixed on the moment when Jason would finally confront him fully. And just as everyone thought the tension might explode, Jason's calm and precise stance signaled that the moment of reckoning was about to come. But on his terms, safely and decisively. The bully thought he could intimidate anyone, but he had no idea who he was dealing with, and the next moments would leave the crowd in awe. The crowd around the street had grown larger now. People whispered in hushed tones, phones held high, ready to capture every second. The bully had no idea that he was no longer in control. What had seemed like a small act of rudeness had escalated into a moment where the eyes of dozens, maybe hundreds, were on him. And the man standing calmly in front of him was Jason Statham, the son of the woman he had disrespected. Jason didn't rush or shout. He simply stood, firm, his body relaxed but confident. Each movement was calculated and deliberate, sending a silent message. He was ready to handle this, and the bully was on notice. The subtle intensity of his presence was enough to make the young man hesitate. For the first time, the bully's smirk wavered. He glanced at the crowd, noticing the recording phones, the attentive faces, and the murmurs of anticipation. Every eye seemed to be silently judging him. "Nina," Jason said, his voice steady, calm, and commanding. It carried clearly across the street, drawing everyone's attention. "You don't treat people like that. Not her, not anyone. Step back and show some respect." The bully laughed nervously, attempting to maintain a facade of control. "What are you going to do, huh? You think you can stop me?" He challenged, trying to provoke a reaction. But Jason didn't respond with anger. He didn't make a single threatening move. Instead, he took a measured step closer, keeping a safe distance while his eyes held a quiet intensity that made the bully pause. The crowd sensed the shift. Gasps and whispers rippled through them. "He's so calm. It's like he owns the situation. Look at him, he's not even raising his voice." Phones clicked and recorded, capturing the escalating tension. Every second the bully stayed in place, the more he realized he was outmatched. Not physically, but in composure, authority, and presence. Jason's calm authority was almost magnetic. The bully, frustrated and flustered, waved his hands, trying to intimidate. "Step aside, don't tell me what to do." But his voice lacked the certainty it had before. He had underestimated the man standing in front of him. Jason responded with a firm, yet calm, gesture. He subtly shifted his stance to place himself slightly between the bully and his mother, projecting protective authority. "This ends now," he said simply. "You don't disrespect others, and you don't get away with it." At that moment, the suspense was electric. The crowd was silent, waiting for a reaction. Some stepped back, sensing the intensity, while others leaned in, eager to see how this confrontation would resolve. The bully shuffled, unsure what to do, realizing his taunts and aggression had failed. He glanced at the recording phones, then at the mother, then back at Jason, and finally hesitated. Jason took another step forward, slow, deliberate, a move that communicated both calm and control. The bully backed up slightly, his earlier arrogance replaced with uncertainty. Even without yelling or physical confrontation, Jason's posture and measured actions had shifted the balance entirely. The elderly woman watched silently, pride and relief shining in her eyes. She knew her son could handle the situation, but the calm authority with which he moved, spoke, and observed the bully left the entire crowd in awe. Suspense rippled through the air. Every person present sensed the moment when the bully would finally have to face the consequences of his actions. Jason didn't gloat or threaten. Instead, he held eye contact, unwavering, letting the bully feel the weight of respect, dignity, and control. Slowly, the bully's defiance melted into hesitation. The crowd murmured approval, and whispers of admiration spread. He's not even angry, and yet the bully is frozen. If you were watching this live, what would you do? Step in, record, or stay back? Comment below. Jason's calm presence had already turned the tables. The bully had lost his confidence, the crowd was captivated, and everyone waiting for the next move could feel that the situation would be resolved, safely, dramatically, and with a lesson for all. The bully had no idea how much authority and calm strength this man possessed, and the next moments would finally teach him a powerful lesson in respect. The street was charged with anticipation. Phones hovered, ready to capture every second, and the murmurs of the growing crowd created a low hum of tension. Every eye was on the two figures at the center, the bully still uncertain and uneasy, and Jason Statham calm, confident, and completely in control. Jason didn't rush, he didn't shout. He simply stepped forward, closing the small distance between himself and the bully, while maintaining a safe, non-threatening posture. His eyes locked onto the young man, steady and unwavering, sending a clear, silent message. This confrontation was over, but it would end with respect, dignity, and authority. "You need to understand something," Jason said, his voice calm but firm, carrying across the street. "Disrespecting others, especially someone older or vulnerable, is never acceptable. You have a choice: apologize, or learn the hard way that respect matters." The bully, visibly rattled, tried to regain composure. I didn't mean," he began, but his words faltered under Jason's unwavering gaze. Every movement of the younger man seemed deliberate and measured, almost cinematic in its precision. The crowd watched in suspense, some whispering, "He's not touching him," but the bully is completely frozen. Jason took another careful step forward, subtly positioning himself to shield his mother. The bully, realizing he had lost his earlier advantage, stepped back instinctively. His confidence was gone. The air around him seemed heavier, as if the calm authority emanating from Jason physically pressed down. Then Jason spoke again, even softer, yet every word carried weight. "Respect is not earned through intimidation or aggression. It's given through dignity, kindness, and courage. You've shown none of these today. The choice is yours to make it right." The bully's shoulders slumped slightly, and for the first time, he looked around, noticing the phones, the crowd, and the murmurs of support for Jason and the elderly woman. I'm sorry," he muttered, hesitating. The apology was awkward, but it carried the realization of accountability. The crowd reacted instantly. A ripple of admiration and approval spread. Some clapped, some cheered softly, and a few even let out audible sighs of relief. It was clear Jason's calm, measured authority had resolved a potentially tense situation without ever resorting to violence. The elderly woman stepped forward slightly, smiling at her son with pride. "Thank you," she whispered, and Jason gave a subtle nod in return. It wasn't about him. It was about standing up for what was right, showing that courage and calmness were far stronger than aggression. Even the bully, though embarrassed, seemed to grasp the lesson. He took a small step back, nodded, and muttered another, more sincere apology. Jason didn't raise his voice. He simply gave a slight, commanding gesture with his hand, signaling the situation was under control. The crowd's fascination didn't fade. Phones continued to record every movement, capturing not a fight, but a lesson in dignity, courage, and the power of calm authority. People whispered to one another, "Wow, he didn't even need to fight," and the bully just froze. That was incredible. He's so composed. Jason turned slightly, addressing the crowd indirectly, his voice carrying without yelling. "We all have the power to stand up for others. Courage doesn't mean aggression. Strength doesn't mean anger. Today's lesson is simple. Respect matters, and it starts with each of us." The tension that had hung over the street for so long dissolved. Phones lowered, murmurs turned into light applause, and the bully quietly walked away, having learned that intimidation could never overpower integrity. Have you ever witnessed someone handle a bully calmly and confidently like this? Share your story in the comments below. Jason's presence had changed everything. What started as a small, disrespectful act had transformed into a powerful lesson for the crowd. Calmness, courage, and composure had won. Not fear, not anger. Even without physical confrontation, the story had reached its climax. But the moment wasn't over yet. The crowd was about to discover something that would make everyone gasp, and the bully would realize exactly who he had been confronting. The tension on the street had finally eased. The bully had taken a step back, his arrogance replaced with hesitation, and the crowd began to murmur in relief. Phones were still raised, recording every moment, capturing not violence but the quiet authority of a man who had resolved a tense confrontation with calm composure. Then, a voice from the crowd whispered, barely audible over the hum of the onlookers, "Wait, isn't that Jason Statham?" The word spread like wildfire. Whispers became louder, murmurs turned to gasps. "No way. It is him. That's Jason Statham." The crowd's energy shifted instantly. Curiosity, awe, and disbelief mingled together. People craned their necks to get a better look, realizing the man who had so effortlessly controlled the situation was not just anyone. He was a world-famous actor known for his skill, composure, and calm authority. The bully, oblivious at first, was now facing a new wave of tension. He glanced at the crowd and saw the recognition reflected in their eyes. Phones were still recording, some faces now smiling, some shaking their heads in admiration. His smirk faltered, then disappeared entirely. Confusion and embarrassment replaced his earlier bravado. He had misjudged the man in front of him, not only as the son of the woman he had disrespected, but as someone extraordinary in his own right. Jason didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The recognition itself carried the impact, but he did take a step forward, positioning himself between the bully and his mother, a subtle reminder that respect wasn't optional here. "You see?" Jason said calmly, his tone firm yet composed. "Respect is not about fear. It's about dignity for everyone." The crowd reacted instantly. Cheers erupted, applause broke out, and phones captured every second. Some people laughed softly, shaking their heads at the bully's stunned expression. Others simply watched in awe, realizing the bully had no idea who he had been confronting. The tension that had gripped the street moments before transformed into a mix of admiration and relief. The bully, now fully humbled, muttered a quiet, almost inaudible apology. I didn't know," he stammered, looking anywhere but Jason's eyes. The crowd's reaction was a mix of laughter and murmurs, not mocking, but understanding that the lesson had been learned. Jason's calm authority had spoken louder than any threat ever could. The elderly woman stepped forward slightly, pride shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered to her son, her voice carrying warmth and relief. Jason gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. He hadn't come here to impress anyone. His goal had always been to handle the situation safely, calmly, and with dignity. But now, the crowd understood. The man they had been watching was someone capable of extraordinary calm and composure under pressure. Jason took a deep breath and addressed the crowd, his voice calm but carrying across the street. "This isn't about fame," he said. "It's about respect. Every one of us has the power to stand up for others. Not with anger, but with courage, calmness, and integrity. That's what truly matters." The crowd erupted into applause again, many people nodding in agreement. Phones were lowered slowly, and whispers of admiration filled the street. The bully, realizing that he had been outmatched by composure rather than force, shuffled backward, humbled and quiet. Have you ever witnessed someone handle a bully calmly and powerfully? Or maybe you've been in a similar situation yourself. Share your story in the comments below. We want to hear it. Jason's calm, controlled demeanor had turned a potentially tense public confrontation into a lesson on courage, respect, and dignity. What had begun as a small act of disrespect toward an elderly woman had now become a moment of inspiration for everyone who witnessed it, or would see it later online. The suspense and tension that had gripped the street were gone, replaced by admiration and reflection. People slowly dispersed, still talking about what had just happened. Phones continued to record, ensuring that the story would reach far beyond the street where it began. The incident was far from over. Once it hit the internet, millions would witness Jason's calm courage, and the bully's lesson would be shared around the world. The incident had ended on the street, but its impact was just beginning. Phones had recorded every moment. Not a fight, not a violent outburst, but a lesson in calm authority, courage, and respect. Within hours, clips of the confrontation began circulating online. Social media users were captivated by the story of an elderly woman being harassed, the bully's arrogance, and the calm, measured way Jason Statham had stepped in. The video spread quickly, gathering millions of views in a matter of hours. People from all over the world were sharing, commenting, and praising Jason's composure. Many admired the fact that he hadn't raised his voice or resorted to aggression. Instead, he had handled the situation safely, respectfully, and decisively. "This is how you teach a lesson without hurting anyone." One comment read, "Calm authority beats arrogance every time," wrote another. The bully, now a cautionary figure in the video, became the example of what happens when aggression is met with calmness and dignity. People discussed the incident in forums, podcasts, and social media groups, emphasizing the importance of respect and the power of staying composed under pressure. Many viewers shared their own experiences with bullies, rudeness, and conflict, creating a global conversation about civility and courage. Meanwhile, news outlets picked up the story, highlighting the human and inspirational side of the incident. Headlines like "Jason Statham demonstrates calm courage in public altercation," and "Elderly woman's son teaches a lesson in respect" spread across the internet. The focus wasn't on violence. It was on the lesson, the dignity, and the courage displayed. Jason himself remained humble. In interviews and statements, he emphasized the story wasn't about fame, but about respect. "Anyon could have stepped in that day," he said. "It's not about being a celebrity. It's about standing up for others, calmly and respectfully. That's what matters." "I was frightened at first," she said, "but my son showed me, and everyone watching, that courage doesn't have to be loud or aggressive. It's about integrity and respect." The bully, meanwhile, faced social consequences. With his actions recorded and shared widely, people could see exactly how he had behaved and how Jason had responded. While the situation had been resolved peacefully on the street, the public reaction served as a reminder that disrespect and aggression have consequences, not through fear, but through accountability and dignity. Have you ever seen someone handle a tense situation with calm and courage? Share your story in the comments below, and let's celebrate respect together. The incident became a viral example of how conflicts can be handled positively, even in public settings. Teachers, parents, and social media influencers began using the video to discuss lessons in civility, courage, and respectful confrontation. Viewers praised the fact that the lesson didn't involve shouting, retaliation, or fear. It was about standing tall, speaking firmly, and maintaining dignity. In the end, the story wasn't just about a bully and an elderly woman. It was about the power of composure, the importance of respect, and the impact of standing up for others in a thoughtful, controlled way. Millions around the world had learned that day that courage isn't always loud. Strength isn't always physical, and a lesson in dignity can resonate far beyond a single street corner. The video continued to circulate, inspiring people across continents. Comments poured in from cities and countries worldwide. "Respect is everything. Calmness wins. I wish everyone could handle conflict this way." The story had become more than a street incident. It had become a universal lesson in courage, dignity, and respect. If you believe in standing up respectfully for others, type respect in the comments below. Share this story with friends and family. And remember, courage and composure always win over arrogance and aggression. Subscribe for more inspiring, action-packed stories that teach real-life lessons.